Hi, it's Katie and Chris, and we're here to talk about successful client visits. And we figured to kind of set the tone for the presentation, we would kind of show you a quick film of just Katie and I's recent trip to our most successful client, St. Lawrence University, just kind of a day in the life, as you can see. And then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the back end and how we kind of made all of that happen before then.
There it is, 8:18, starting our trip in good old Canton, New York. It's glorious outside, you can see by the snow. Hence is why Katie is in the Mountain Mart getting cough drops for our trip. We'll be back in a minute.
Hi.
All right, here we are, gorgeous St. Lawrence, to show you what a day in the life.
Provide a sample of students who represent the demographic that you're seeking.
Kids. You know, Katie and I come out a couple times a year. If it works really well, then we can essentially go, okay, we really like this, let's expand. Or that's it for all of our products, Naviance, College Confidential, the actual pieces that we do with you, but then also we give it back to our schools as well. Something that we spend on office, that's what we are. Out of everything
Well, we did this. We just
well,
I didn't write the last one that you said yesterday.
And there were three different brackets. There was 4.0 and higher, 3.5 to 3.9.
Are either
and already have it established.
And we got a flip camera.
Yeah. Oh, that didn't work.
There's certain qualifications that
Okay, exactly. So you have to apply.
wants to do. We have a program called ISAP, and they can go from there.
So, is it required?
I have no idea if it's true or not, but that is why St. Lawrence decided to get these, and they're spread out now.
Very cool.
The box of the generic postcards will be mailed to you in about the same amount of time, by the end of the month, definitely.
Yeah, and I really think that this is fine and good, but this is so much
That's
better.
really, yeah.
You know?
So before there can be a really good client visit, you have to start with a good relationship between the sales account manager and the client services account manager, and that starts with good communication. So a big part of, I think, the success that Chris and I have is simply good communication. We always keep one another in the loop on anything that's going on with clients. We'll let each other know if we have a meeting set up with the client in case they'd like to add anything. And of course you have to find the happy medium. We're not copying each other on every single email that goes out to clients, but milestones are important.
Thanks, Katie. And I've always kind of felt that, you know, if you let the other person do all the work and you take the credit for it, that makes great teamwork. Just kidding. To complement, as Katie said, you know, the communication is really important, but once the communication starts to build, you have to have that trust factor. You know, communication is the start, but trust really is the foundation. You have to trust what each other's doing and know that you have each other's best interests at hand, which really in the end is the client. I think, you know, so many times each one of us, you know, both sales and the client services will try to control as much as possible, but a lot of that comes really at the detriment of the client. Once you have an open and trustworthy relationship between sales and client services, the effort gets a lot easier. It doesn't happen overnight, you know, but give it a shot. You never know, you might like it.
I think another big factor is the fact that Chris and I truly share ownership of our accounts. An account is no more mine than it is Chris's and vice versa. I just think that really helps us share the relationship. It helps us and it also shows the client that we truly are a team. One thing I like that Chris does, he actually just did this morning, that shows this is that on the welcome package that we send to clients, he'll sometimes ask me to fill out a little note on the thank you card to the client. If I've worked with them before, since we really are a team, it shows that.
And I think Katie kind of put it best. She said that there is no beginning or the end to an involvement with the client. That really spoke so true, and it resonated with me yesterday as we were sitting down and meeting about this. You know, Katie and I both work, you know, on the back end before speaking with the client, and then on the support, you know, it doesn't end after they sign the contract. It really is a beginning, and it's a continuous cycle. In addition to that, you know, Katie and I both truly believe that within our jobs we have two customers. For me, the customer is the school, and then Katie, and then vice versa is the school and myself. You know, if I get a contract on Close Wednesday, you know, for a big sale, but it requires that Katie gets all of their ads and their new products up by month's end, I'm really doing a disservice not only to her but the client. Every sale I make, I have to make sure that I kind of set the client up for a successful campaign, but I also have to set Katie up for a smooth transition to client services, and that she has the time and the resources to really provide them with the best support. If I do the first but not really the latter, the odds that the campaign will not be successful and the client will feel rushed have definitely increased. Obviously in the end that'll hurt me in the renewal and if I come back to them on the upsell.
So once you have the foundation of a good relationship between the salesperson and the client services person, the first step to a successful meeting, successful client visit, is to set up a meeting between the two of you. And there you'll talk through what each of you, what your goals are for the meeting, what I want to bring to the table, what Chris wants to bring to the table, and then we'll also talk about what the client is expecting. And we'll map out the day and figure out what we want to cover during the visit.
So I definitely encourage you guys to set aside, depending on when we find out the client's coming or we're going, this could be 2-3 weeks in advance, and that we coordinate and schedule our meeting for at least a half an hour. It usually ends up a little bit more to about 45 minutes. But we kind of both put together the agenda for the client for the day and a half based upon both the client's needs, my needs, and Katie's needs as well. Really, before we get up, we have a good roadmap of the day's events, who we'll need to bring in from outside of our team to help us make the day successful. All right. Then we go. Then we get to work and feel. It's really important for me, and I know Chris has really stressed this, that the salespeople should really be the ones pulling the numbers for the ROI report, the comparisons. It should be something that the client services should have to pull together and put on their plate. I really feel you get a good sense of where the partnership is and where it came from. You can kind of see some trends. You can dig in a little bit, kind of pick out pockets of success within those numbers. So I really encourage the sales folks to actually pull and put together a lot of those numbers and then get that kind of passed over to the client services. Obviously, in turn, you can use that kind of fuel for your renewal and upsell recommendations. If the salesperson has the client services really pull that number, then you really don't have an understanding of them and you're really just reporting numbers to the client. You're not reporting trends, successes really in the true partnership.
And just to add to the client services side of that, it's important that we also review those numbers that the sales team pulls so that we understand how their campaign's performing and we can chime in during the meeting as well. And then once we do put the whole packet together, give the salesperson another chance to review the packet as a whole and then come together and both add your suggestions to the end of the packet. And then I think an important part of the meetings, at least why we have good meetings, is the conversation flows really well. Even though we both have portions of the day that we each present during, we both feel like we can jump in at any time and add our comments. It's not like this is Chris's time to talk and this is Katie's time to talk. We both share the whole day.
And to complement that, I definitely think, really encourage a lot of folks on the client services to, Katie's done a great job, and I'm sure a lot of those are really familiar with the research. But when we start going through this and talking, when the client services person can chime into the conversations and talk about the research, that adds a lot of validity and comes from a different perspective. So essentially, you're selling without selling. So I encourage the sales folks to continue to have that trust factor and, essentially, loosen up some of the reins that you have and have them, the client service managers, be a part of that conversation and add a lot more to it. Just like a Brian Mikesell or Chris or Dan Jones will bring a lot of substance to validity to a conversations because it's a different perspective and they're not necessarily selling, even though they are. So I definitely encourage you to do that. Anything else, Katie?
Actually one of the most important pieces, I think, is once the client visit's over, the client's gone, or you're back in the office, it's so important that you meet post-visit and just hash out what was accomplished and make sure you know who's following up with what items and make sure that that follow-up is definitely there and no one's dropping the ball there.
Yeah, and I definitely think that is a team approach and a combination. The client services person shouldn't follow up with everything, nor should the salesperson. It really should come from both of us looking like we take ownership of the entire process and we're CCing each other on the mail. And so when we have that follow-up, the next steps, hopefully closing for a big contract, your client services person is on that call and you guys are all on the same page. I think that's it on our end. And hopefully it's been helpful for you to create a roadmap that it's been successful for both of us. It didn't happen overnight. You know, Katie and I have been very fortunate to almost work together for 3 years, but I will tell you from a sales perspective, it pays dividends.